Welcome back to the County Agent Podcast. This week we have Sarah LaGrone from Cowley County as our guest. And we have Sarah because this week is the week that we get our baby chicks to start our Market Broiler program in Barber County. And Sarah is a veteran of this program. So we're going to talk a little bit about her experience with this in Cowley County and some do's and don'ts, some things to get these chicks started properly. And Sarah, how's it going?
It is good. It is good.
So we will be receiving our chicks uh, anytime this week. Um, and we were not able to get the Cornish cross. What we are getting is pioneers, which may work fine for what we're doing. They're a little more uh, heat hardy
Good.
uh, and they take a little longer to finish, but should be fine with that. We've kind of got it planned out to where they'll finish about the time of our county fair. Uh,
Perfect.
but with the kids picking up the chicks this week, what are some things that we need to be aware of starting day one of pickup when they take them home?
Yeah, so you guys know your chicks are coming this week, so it's a good time to go ahead and get your brooders already ready for them. You don't want to bring them home in a box and have make them have to wait for you to get their area set up. You want that area set up, a heat lamp on it. We need that area to be about 95 degrees. It's a great idea when you're raising broilers to make sure that you have a thermometer on them and to where you can see exactly what temperature is in there. But have that space ready for them, ready to go. So when you bring them home, they can go straight there to your brooder. It's a good idea to make sure any vitamins or any different probiotics would be helpful. They're going through a stressful time. These birds are getting shipped at a day old. They'll kind of get evened out by with your extension office, which is really helpful, but making sure that we can get them into their brooder and be as comfortable as possible and get some probiotics in them too.
When we look at the brooders when they go home, is it preferred to have like a plain wood chip, like maybe the finer the better, not the big wood chip that we see in the livestock barns, versus say cedar fiber or paper shavings stuff? I'm trying to think what else people might have used. Is it just like a pine shaving? Is that a
Yes.
preferred bedding?
Yep, having a nice pine shaving that's dust free, maybe not too small, surely, especially not too big, just a nice kind of medium pine shaving that is has as little as dust as possible in it is perfect with a nice, kind of 2 inches deep on that.
Okay. And we will be, um, Infinite Health Labs in Stillwater, Oklahoma
Mm-hmm.
has a product called Paracetrol, and they sent enough to hand out to every kid that's picking up
Awesome.
chicks. This is to help prevent coccidiosis or any type of parasite issues. Um, so when we put out that water for them when we get home, is there any little tricks or things we need to know about uh, starting them off on water at home? I know I've seen people put rocks in the water where like the birds don't fall in,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Is there anything that you guys have done?
It kind of depends what water you have. We have a couple different waters that really do have a deep dish on them. So for that first couple days, I have put rocks in the bottom for it. If you've got, there's some from Tractor Supply that may be a little shallower right there, and those are fine. You don't need rocks in the bottom of those. So it really just depends what you have. The biggest thing is making sure that when you bring them home, all your birds have enough space to be around that water together. So you really need to make sure your water grows with and feeder grows with your birds. And so we want all of them to be eating and drinking anytime they want. We don't want them to have to fight for a spot because our goal is the biggest birds at the end. And so we want to make sure they all have a spot.
Now, we will hopefully have them in time to have them straightened out
Yes.
with the extension office. What I've done in the past when we've started some chicks is just kind of dip their beaks in
Yep.
the water to let them know where it is. Is there a need to do that again once they've been moved to their new location, or should they be good to go, you think?
Maybe just a quick little dip, but not, it kind of depends. Just really keeping an eye on them. But, it never hurts to just, as you're putting them in there, just a quick little dip just to make sure they know where it's at and get a feel for themselves. They're still pretty young.
Okay. Now, as far as feed, we've got these birds were not vaccinated. We did pay for the vaccination. The hatchery refunded that back and said these don't get that. Uh, should we be looking at utilizing a medicated feed once we receive these, or once these kids take them home to kind of curb off any of that stuff you talked about with the stress?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good to have a medicated feed if they're not vaccinated, just to protect you. It's a quick run while we have them, so we're not having them for a long time, but with having multiple in a pen, it's a good idea to have that medicated feed. For those market broilers, we want to be around for the first 2 weeks, like a 23-25% protein starter feed. I multiple places have specifically broiler mixed rations that have that higher protein. That's going to be higher than just your normal medicated chick feed. And so there's a lot of benefit to finding feed that's directed straight for these broilers.
Now, when we take these chicks, the kids take them home. Obviously, we've talked that's going to be kind of a stressful
Hmm.
situation for them. And with livestock in general or poultry, uh, generally when we see issues, it's when they are stressed.
Yeah.
So when these kids get them home, would it be best get them in their brooder and just hands off, back off of them, let them be chicks for a little bit instead of trying to handle them too much?
Absolutely. Yep. Is much keeping your hands off of them right there at the first. These are babies. Think of when you bring your baby child home or something. These are babies. They've had a stressful week. Let them settle. Now, I do think, stay being above them and just really watching them closely. We can catch a lot of things if we're just keeping an eye on our birds, being able to see different things, but keeping your hands off of them for a little bit. Let them settle.
When we start looking at them, as you mentioned, keeping an eye on them, what are some things that are very simple to identify that the kids should be looking for each day? Is there things with eyes, beaks, feet, feathers,
Yeah.
things like that?
Absolutely. So really big things is watching that behavior, like we said, of, you can tell if it's too cold or too hot. If it's cold, they're going to be chirping a lot and they're going to be huddled up together. If they're too hot, they're going to be way away from the heat. That temperature kind of needs to come down. We can get into that in a little bit as they go, but really just watching them. Any livestock that you're looking at or that you watch their eyes closely, know those animals so you can see when those behaviors start to change so we can make adjustments accordingly. If their eyes, if they just look, if they're just, kind of droopy looking eyes or eyes don't look healthy, any sort of discharge or crust, any type of discharge or feed sticking to their beak, we want to know. Looking at those feathers, we want to make sure their feathers are laying down. They look healthy. A bird that maybe doesn't look healthy, their feathers are going to be kind of spiked up a little bit. We want them to look relaxed and healthy and clean. And really, in these broilers, as they start growing, it is so important. I can't stress it enough of watching them every day because looking at their breast as they go, their feet, the bedding, that is something I can't stress enough, is keeping that bedding cleaner than you think. Cleaner, that is a full-time job of keeping that bedding clean, and it's so important because I do have my little meat bird here, but it's so important because this chest right here, if their bedding is not clean, it'll pop up quick and you won't notice it as much, but they can get blisters right here. And um, you have to cut that meat off. So that's wasted meat, all because of a management of not keeping their bedding clean. And not only that, but their feet. Their feet can get blisters on them very fast, and you don't catch it quick enough. You go to bring them in to process them, and their chest is, doesn't have feathers on it. It's which some of them naturally don't have feathers on their chest, but It'll be dirty and blistered. Their feet will be dirtied and blistered. And that's all stuff that we have to cut off and throw away and that your family doesn't get to take home. And so, and all of that comes from management of making sure their pen is clean and dry every single day and keeping on top of that. But those are all things that we need to be watching how they're walking on those feet. We need to make sure they're keeping strong, good feet. That's something in broilers that breaks down quickly. So watching all of them and just knowing your birds and knowing when things don't look right and reaching out for help.
Yeah. Um, when we're as these birds grow, we talked about the importance of that temperature there in the beginning. Is it each week that we want to
Mhm.
decrease that temperature about 5 degrees?
Yep. Yep. And you want to kind of each week decrease to 5 degrees, and you really kind of want it around 65, 70.
Yeah. And work it to that,
Yep,
right?
work it down to that. And it really matters like as they feather too, getting them down to that. One thing, especially with we are blessed to be hopefully getting some rain here shortly, but making sure your brooder is inside during this quick, during when they're younger before they're feathered. I know some families will go ahead and move them out to a chicken tractor or something like that, and that's okay. We just need to make sure we're when I say that, that's further on down when they're fully feathered and closer to the end. We have to make sure they're staying that good temperature though, around that 70 and not up and down.
When about what age is kind of a ballpark of when we can take them from the brooder and move them into a bigger environment?
Yeah. They grow they grow very fast. And so it just, as they're it kind of depends on it. I mean, that
Each case
3-ish
by
weeks kind
case.
of. Yeah, it kind of depends how fast they're growing. With the couple years that we've had our program, we've had some families that they had quite a bit smaller birds and took a little bit time to move on to that. And then we had some families that we had some birds having heart attacks by 5 weeks old. And so we all from the same place, all the same group of birds. And so it kind of it is a case by case, and it's really your area too, whether I would just make sure that they have plenty of room. Their feed water has plenty of room. As they start to grow, you may have to start adding more, and that's what your pen needs to grow with it.
So it's perfectly fine once they need that space. They can be maybe, do you call them a run? Like
Yeah.
a bigger environment where they can get out and move around. They don't necessarily need to be kept in a small pen for the
No.
entirety of the project.
Yep. And as long as you can make sure and keep lights on them, lights are important to keep on these birds because it helps them grow more. If your lights are off a lot, they're sleeping. We want them up, we want them eating. So really keeping lights honestly on them as long as like all day every day is keeping lights on. You can kind of go through some breaks a little bit at night, but as long as we can try to keep lights on them, I believe it's like a 40-watt bulb, kind of just a couple bulbs on them. Um, that helps them too. So as long as they're not going somewhere that's dark and that you can keep the bedding very clean.
Okay. As these birds grow, I know it's important that we have some feet strength because
Yes.
we're raising meat birds, and so they're probably as much as anything, we need to make sure their feet and legs are growing with them to sustain them. Is there any tricks to how we set up a feeder or a water as the birds grow?
Yes, absolutely. So, like we said, we want to make sure they have enough room to get around it, but we also want that to grow up with them too. So, as those birds are growing, we need to be picking that feed and water up and not just blocking it up just a little bit to where they have to stand. It's very important that we have them hung that or propped up, but to where the birds are having to fully stand up and stretch and get over that lip to eat it. Um, Meat birds are lazy. They are chunky and lazy and grow fast. And if you let them, they'd lay there and just put their uh, just eat the feeder right there if you let them. And so we need to exercise them and make them get up. If we don't do that, they will lay there and their legs will just spoil out and be weak and they'll fall on them. As they get bigger, I don't know as much on your breed but like a Cornish cross, as they get to that end, it's a problem in them that their legs it's crazy to hold a lane, to see like a lane breed chicken beside this meat bird chicken because their feet will be huge. And if they're not strengthening them every day, those feet will just not hold them up and they'll just lay there and die because they can't get themselves to the feed and water after a little bit. So it's very important to be really raising them and making them stretch up and strengthen those legs.
So, so it is, there is darn sure difference between grandma's chicken yard and what we're fixing to be doing.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. It's really cool to actually see it side by side. I've been able to process one side by side, and I'll sh the just the body cavity, like this is just a little simulator, but the body cavity on these meat birds, you can easily fit your hand in and pull everything out. Whereas if you have a laying breed, that's very small. Like my hands barely fit in their body cavity. I had to really push. Where these birds are, just the internal body cavity on top of everything else is completely different.
um, as we have been unseasonably warm so far this year. I mean, we've got a cold snap right now,
Hmm.
but the last several days it's been in the 90s. Wind's been blowing 30 miles an hour. Um, as these birds grow, do we need to have fans available or anything like that, or is warmer the better? What's kind of the thoughts on that?
Yeah. Once I've raised them in the springtime, so I can't say for that I've done it quite yet in the summer, but I know even in the springtime, when those things are full and I mean full grown, we're getting close to processing. They're hot even in April. And so when we say 70, once that's why it's good to have that thermometer in there because once it's holding over that, now we need to swap from a heat lamp. We still need a light on them, but we need to swap from a heat lamp to then we need to be getting some fans on them and keeping them either way we can keep it at 70, but as they start maturing, that is a big thing is making sure that they're staying cool enough because it's going to be hot this summer.
And we did talk about the importance of light,
Hmm.
but there's probably nothing wrong with having, utilizing natural light, but having
Yes.
possibly some shade or something
Yes.
to knock down like a hot wind on them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. It's kind of going to be a give and a take. And with this program, I think we just finished up our third year, and every year families learn a little bit more. We have some families that one year just nothing goes right. They end up with barely the three to judge, and then the next year they learn something from it. And so, um, raising these birds is not as easy as just going having just normal chicks. I mean, there's a little bit of a challenge with it, and it kind of creates a little bit of fun with it too, of learning every year from it and just picking up little tips to help you do better next year. Don't Sometimes things happen. One thing I do know, we had a family this year that had a predator issue, and so when they went out to a bigger coop, they had a coon come in, and so that really hurt them. So really making sure you're watching that too. But things happen sometimes, but really just ask questions and learn from it, and it's fun to grow on and learn about them.
Now, as they grow, I know we talked as in the beginning, the importance of letting them settle in, don't handle them too
Hmm.
much, keep an eye on them. But as they grow, should we handle them at all as they grow or get them used to being handled to get them ready for a show or anything?
Yeah, I mean, just having them used to, I'm not saying hold them all the time, but having them used to your presence, you are going to hold them to show. And so, you want them to be used to that. We really need to make sure we're holding them the correct way. Kind of making sure your two hands under their chest like this. Another way is kind of a hand under their chest and then holding both their legs down here. Um, One thing with them is, if we were upside down, like while you're judging, you're going to be holding them upside down. And then once the judge leaves, you want to tip them back up a little bit, make sure they can breathe good. But really, a big thing is like making sure we don't have any broken wings. That happens if you're picking them up, kind of not paying attention, and you pick them up and they flap their wings around. You can get a broken wing really quickly. And so going in and out of your carriers, making sure if you've got your hand on their chest right here and then kind of their legs right here, you can hold them close to you and have a good hold to them. But making sure you're supporting them. But
Probably
no, we
about
don't need to
like
be holding
any,
them all the time.
yeah, there's a fine line with
Yeah.
show projects
Yes.
that you want them to be comfortable around you, but you don't want them to be pets. Okay.
Yep.
So, um, we'll start wrapping this up. Is there anything we've not covered that we need to be aware of?
Um, really on that feed, kind of just touching back on that feed a little bit, if you're feeding a medicated feed, which is great, just make sure that you're watching your withdrawal dates coming into your processing, is checking those withdrawal dates. And another, just because it gets missed sometimes easily, I'll go ahead and throw a plug in as to before you process, we want to make sure we pull our feed 8 to 12 hours prior to it, of making sure we pull that feed before it.
So, kind of some takeaways for when these kids pick these chicks up this week. Make sure that brooder's good and ready and
Mhm.
warm. So when they bring them home, they can be in the most comfortable environment they can. Making sure good fresh water's available, make sure the feed's available, and then just really keeping an eye on them, checking eyes, beaks, feet. Um, is there, if you see a crusty eye or a dirty beak, is there any telltale signs that, of is it is that an immediate call to a veterinarian, or what do you know about that?
Um, we actually haven't had any lately that have had that. One thing that we have had is some that would kind of have kind of a pasty bottom. And so, but yeah, if any of those, watching those, keeping an eye, and it's always great to reach out to your vets, just to kind of pick their brain and ask them about something. But we have seen from transporting, when they get kind of their pasty bottoms, and that's something that can take one's life really quick if you don't catch it. And it can come just from stress of moving them. So really that first week or so, really be watching for that. It'll kind of just crust up on the bottom, and what you need to do is just kind of soak it in warm water. And then you can put some Vaseline right there, because you just don't want that area. If it gets covered, then they'll die pretty quickly actually from it. And so really watching that those first week or so.
Yeah. So you see something like that, probably no need to go buy an antibiotic or anything like that.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very
Yeah,
much
absolutely.
for
Thank
taking
you.
time to visit, and hopefully the birds arrive here soon and we can get started on our project.
Yeah, and I'll see you guys at processing.
That, yeah, for those who don't know, you have been uh, gracious enough to come over and help us on our processing day in
Yes.
July. So hopefully we keep them alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see your guys' projects.
You bet. Well, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it.